Operation Epic Fury. Folks, the moment has finally come. After 47 years of Iran chanting death to America after they killed our Marines in Beirut, after they maimed thousands of our soldiers with roadside bombs, after they tried to assassinate President Donald Trump himself, America has finally answered. The United States military is conducting major combat operations against the Iranian regime right now. Ships are sinking, missiles are being destroyed, and the world's #1 state sponsor of terror is learning what happens when you threaten the greatest nation on earth. But here's what the fake news won't tell you. Why now? Why was this the moment President Trump decided to pull the trigger? Well, let me tell you exactly why this matters for you and your family. You see, for decades, Iran has been developing missiles that could reach not just our bases in the Middle East, not just our allies in Europe, but eventually the American homeland ourselves, your city, your neighborhood. They've been racing towards nuclear weapons while weak politicians in Washington look the other way. Every single time you see a veteran missing limbs, every time you see a face shattered by an explosion that was almost certainly caused by an Iranian roadside bomb. Senator Ted Cruz confirmed that Iran has killed nearly 1,000 Americans over 47 years. And here's what should terrify every American. The Iranian Ayatollah was actively trying to murder President Trump right until these strikes began. Now, this wasn't some distant geopolitical chess game. This was a direct, imminent threat to the leader of the free world, to our military personnel, and to American citizens everywhere. The regime that held our embassy hostages for 444 days, that blew up our Marine barracks, killing 241 of our finest, that orchestrated attacks on our troops across the Middle East, that regime was on the verge of obtaining nuclear weapons, and President Trump, what did he do? He said enough. Now, friends, speaking of protecting what matters most, let me share something important with you, something that's brewing right now. You can feel it. Military operations in the Middle East, global tensions rising, markets watching every headline. See, the problem is you never know the full story until after the crash, after the collapse, after it's too late. And here is the brutal truth. You can't protect yourself after the fact. You have to be ready now. All this uncertainty, the chaos, the warning signs coming out of Iran, maybe it's nothing, maybe it's just noise, but maybe it's the beginning of something much, much bigger. Nobody knows for sure, but waiting to find out. That's how people get hurt financially. That's why smart Americans are turning to noble gold investments, physical gold and silver. They're not just investments, they're insurance against chaos when everything else is uncertain. Precious metals have protected wealth for thousands of years, so call Noble Gold today or visit the website linked below and tell them that Next News sent you, because in times like these, the unprepared survive and thrive. Let's get back to this historic moment, because here's what absolutely stunned me about this operation, and the mainstream media is completely ignoring it. This isn't just Republicans rallying behind President Trump. Democrat Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania is standing with the president on this military action. When a Democrat from a blue state says you have to take decisive action to create real peace, you know this threat was serious. And what President Trump revealed about our objectives, it's not just about stopping Iran today, it's about making sure they can never threaten America again. Now, the news broke, of course, over the weekend, and it sent every single newsroom into a fury. Exactly. Our own newsroom as well. President Donald Trump discussing it when he broke the news to the nation. Here is the moment that it all happened. We'll just play a clip from it because we have a lot of news to crack down on.
A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people. Its menacing activities directly endanger the United States, our troops, our bases overseas, and our allies throughout the world. For 47 years, the Iranian regime has chanted death to America and waged an unending campaign of bloodshed and mass murder, targeting the United States, our troops, and the innocent people in many, many countries. Among the regime's very first acts was to back a violent takeover of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, holding dozens of American hostages for 444 days. In 1983, Iran's proxies carried out the Marine barracks bombing in Beirut that killed 241 American military personnel. In 2000, they knew and were probably involved with the attack on the USS Cole. Many died. Iranian forces killed and maimed hundreds of American service members in Iraq. The regime's proxies have continued to launch countless attacks against American forces stationed in the Middle East in recent years, as well as U.S. naval and commercial vessels and international shipping lanes. It's been mass terror.
And that is all coming to an end. The White House dropping the bombshell announcement. Now see how Trump is actually executing the strategy on the ground. Insider paper, President Trump outlines the U.S. objectives in the war, says the U.S. military campaign against Iran aims to destroy its missile capabilities, annihilate its navy, prevent Tehran from ever acquiring a nuclear weapon, and dismantle its ability to operate.
Almost 47 years, this regime has been attacking the United States and killing Americans. Every time you see someone with missing arms and legs or a face that's been absolutely shattered violently, it was almost certainly caused by an Iran roadside bomb. They were put there by General Soleimani, who was the father of the roadside bomb. Very proudly, he thought, but I terminated him in my first term. This was our last best chance to strike what we're doing right now and eliminate the intolerable threats posed by this sick and sinister regime. And they are indeed sick and sinister. Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's number one sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon, never going to have a nuclear weapon. I said that from the beginning. They're never going to have a nuclear weapon. They were on the road to getting one legitimately through a deal that was signed foolishly by our country. And finally, we're ensuring that the Iranian regime cannot continue to arm, fund, and direct terrorist armies outside of their borders. And we thought we had a deal, but then they backed out. And they came back, and we thought we had a deal, and they backed out. I said, you can't deal with these people. You've got to do it the right way. Today, we grieve for the 4 heroic American service members who have been killed in action and send our love and support to their families. In their memory, we continue this mission with ferocious, unyielding resolve to crush the threat this terrorist regime poses to the American people, and a threat indeed it is.
So President Trump laying it out there. The campaign is underway, the 4-point battle plan to crush Iran. But how is it playing out politically back home? Senator John Fetterman always breaking ranks with his party, which is encouraging. At least there is a voice of reason there.
You support the president's action here. Why?
Well, because that was always the right thing. I mean, you can just put out, tweets and statements, to support peace, but to actually create real peace, you have to do these kinds of actions just like happened. Just like last year, too, when they to destroy their nuclear facilities. Sometimes peace is possible after these kinds of steps, and that's why I support those things. And I listened to my colleague from South Carolina earlier, and I even had the option, to talk to him before the State of the Union speech, and I encouraged it as well. And so I fully support these kinds of things, and I'm proud to stand with our military and Israel through this, and that was the right thing.
It's kind of like when you get in a fight with a bully on the playground, right? You pop him in the nose, you take him out, then suddenly you're best friends. Let's just hope that on the other side of this, we can forge a relationship with an Iran that will be friendly to the Middle East, friendly to Israel, friendly to the United States, and we won't have to go through this again. I'm not a fan of regime change by any stretch. So don't get me wrong. I'm not cheerleading, but I want to be clear that there are certain threats that do need to be dealt with, and President Trump is doing just that. So Democrats like Fetterman are now backing the hardline approach, and Republicans are doubling down on this 47-year argument. Senator Tom Cotton.
Well, Brett, I commend President Trump for making the difficult but absolutely necessary decision to join our partners in Israel to eliminate once and for all the threat that Iran's outlaw regime has posed to the United States for 47 years. Iran has been waging a campaign of terror against the United States and our friends since they took over the country in 1979. That started with holding American citizens hostage for more than a year in our embassy, blowing up the Marine barracks in Beirut in 1983, blowing up Khobar Towers barracks in Saudi Arabia, killing and maiming thousands of troops in Iraq and Afghanistan with deadly roadside bombs. We cannot allow such a regime to have a nuclear weapon. We cannot allow them to have thousands of missiles that can hit all of our bases, not just in the Middle East, but in Europe, and also one day hit us here in the United States. So this is an absolutely necessary operation. I commend President Trump, and I join all Arkansans and all Americans in praying for the safety and the success of our troops in their mission.
Senator Tom Cotton invoking nearly 5 decades of Iranian aggression. Now we're getting to the specific justification. Here's Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who posted Iran's regime has killed thousands of Americans, targeted our service members, even tried to assassinate President Trump. The president acted within his Article 2 authority to neutralize a direct threat. The U.S. pursued negotiations. Iran refused to end enrichment. So before we get to her remarks, remember, President Trump did attempt a diplomatic approach. For days and days, they worked to try to come to a diplomatic solution, and that fell through. And this is the result of those negotiations falling through.
Look, I think in any form of conflict, there's going to be a risk, but I want to be very clear that Iran has been responsible for killing thousands of Americans over the last 40 years. As a result of what the president decided to do while operating within his Article 2 authorities, I don't know if many people know this, but they already tried to assassinate the president. They've already killed Americans, and they're specifically in the southern belt region of Iran, their missile program was a direct threat to our service members, and as you are seeing, they are now actively engaging, seeking to not just hit the United States, but their neighboring countries, over 9 of them, as a result of this. And so, they're obviously going to be hitting back, but let's be clear, we were trying to negotiate. They were stubborn. They were completely arrogant. They would not agree to eliminating their nuclear enrichment program, even though we offered to give them a permanent supply of nuclear fuel for energy. And so this is a result of their poor leadership. I think at any point, as Secretary Rubio stated yesterday, the United States is willing to continue those negotiations, but that would be up to them.
And as you...
That would be up to them. Her spelling out Iran's direct attacks on America and Trump himself, but Cruz is about to tell us why this could define President Trump's entire legacy. Here's Ted Cruz.
President Trump's decision to launch this decisive action against Iran is the single most important decision of his presidency. I think he laid out powerfully and effectively why he is taking this action. He is taking this action because the government of Iran is a profound and malign influence. They have been the leading state sponsor of terrorism for 47 years. They have, over that time, killed nearly 1,000 Americans. They provide more than 90% of the funding for Hamas. They provide more than 90% of the funding for Hezbollah. The Iranian Ayatollah was, until yesterday, actively trying to murder the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump. I spent the entire day with President Trump on Friday, right before he launched these attacks. He and I discussed this at length on Friday. My counsel to him was that the Iranian regime has never been weaker, that it was teetering, and now was the time. My advice was, do not miss this opportunity. I think the president has acted boldly. He's acted decisively. And Iran no longer being led by a theocratic, murderous dictator, that makes America much, much safer.
Much, much safer. So here's the truth the establishment media and the forever war critics will never admit. President Donald Trump just did what decades of politicians refused to do. He eliminated an existential threat to America while the Iranian regime was at its weakest. He didn't wait for them to get nuclear weapons. He didn't wait for them to assassinate him. He didn't wait for them to kill more American soldiers. He acted. And this is what America First leadership looks like. Not endless negotiations with terrorists, not pallets of cash delivered in the dead of night. Strength. And now, for the first time in 47 years, the Iranian people have a chance at freedom from theocratic tyranny. And that's not just a win for America, that's a win for the entire world. Now, folks, we're living through history right now. President Trump, he has taken the decisive action that should have happened decades ago, and Republicans and some Democrats are standing united behind him. This is American strength on full display. The regime that chanted death to America for 47 years is finally learning what happens when you threaten the greatest nation on earth. So I want to hear from you in the comments below. Do you support President Trump's decision to take military action against Iran? Yes or no? Drop your answer in the comments and let's get the conversation going. And don't forget to smash that subscribe button. If you haven't already, hit the notification bell so you never miss our coverage of this developing situation. And make sure you check out our merch shop to support our work.
The system controls information. Information control is power.
They don't want you to see this.
The truth only survives together. They don't want this shared. Share this now. You know out.